There is Mr. Mogg speaking directly to the camera. He does this every day.
Yes, that was a fantastic SNP MP John Nicolson, and he was in the Culture, Media and Sports Committee meeting on the 4th of July, Tuesday 2023. And the witnesses were Kate Biggs, Content Policy Director of Ofcom, and Kate Davies, Public Policy Director of Ofcom. There was also a third member of the witness, but we'll get to him later. Now, he was basically centering his questions about a certain haunted pencil on GBBs.
Can I begin with you, Miss Davies, please? Now, I understand that Ofcom is investigating one episode of Jacob Rees-Mogg's programme. Why only one?
So we set out yesterday that we are investigating one programme on GBNews and one on Talk TV, in addition to the ongoing investigation we have in relation to GBNews. We look at every single complaint in the same way, either individual complaint or multiple complaints, and we look at them in relation to our rules and take a decision on whether to investigate or not.
Because the problem, of course, with Jacob Rees-Mogg's programme isn't a single episode, it's the ongoing nature of the programme. Now, I had a wee look at your press release that you issued when explaining why it was that you were going to investigate this one episode of Mr. Mogg's programme. He gave a absurd commentary about Donald Trump being found innocent of sexual molestation charges, which of course is not the case at all, as we know. And this is what your press release said. We're investigating whether this programme broke our rules, which prevent politicians from acting as newsreaders unless exceptionally it is editorially justified. That's the quote from the Ofcom press release. But of course that's not what your rules say at all. What your rules actually say is no politician may be used as a newsreader, interviewer or reporter in any news programme unless exceptionally it is editorially justified. Now, there's a bit of spin going on there from Ofcom, I feel. Your press release said that politicians couldn't act as newsreaders, but your rules actually say that they can't act as newsreaders or interviewers or reporters. And of course, Mr. Mogg, on every single programme that he presents, Monday to Thursday, goodness knows, how on earth can a full-time MP find the time to do a news programme 4 days a week when he should be working for his constituents? But setting that to one side, he interviews every day of the week, thus breaking your rules.
I'm not going to comment on an individual case. It would be inappropriate for me to do so.
No, I'm not asking you to comment on that particular programme. I'm asking you to comment on the genre of active politicians presenting news programmes, as Mr. Mogg does every single day.
So what I can comment on is our rules, which say, firstly, as you rightly quote, that no politician may be used as a newsreader, interviewer or reporter in a news programme unless exceptionally editorially justified. And there is obviously also rules around people who are standing for election and that they cannot present at all. There is also a clear distinction between news and current affairs, and our rules around due impartiality cover both news and current affairs, and we have set out further details in terms of what you might expect in a news programme versus what you might expect in a current affairs programme.
Yes, let's look at that in a second, but he's doing a news programme. I mean, the clue is in the name, GBNews. It's a news programme. He does interviews. Now, your rules say that politicians cannot do interviews unless under exceptional circumstances. He does interviews every single day. He's breaching your rules.
We don't judge.
Why not? It's your job to judge.
Do you let me finish my answer? We don't judge a programme based on the name of the programme. We judge it based on the content and the way it's treated and how a broadcaster chooses to adhere or not to the due impartiality and due accuracy rules.
And may I add...
I'll pursue that for a second, then I'll come to you. But there's no due impartiality in Mr. Mogg's programme. Every single day, he churns out the same old right-wing pro-Brexit stuff. What he's doing is blurring news presenting and commentary. He does that every single day of the week. Your rules, I read out your rules to you, I won't do it again, they're very explicit. It has to be exceptional circumstances for an MP to do interviews. He interviews every single day of the week. He's breaching your rules. It's not a one-off, it's every day. Why don't you act to stop this?
If the programme constitutes a news programme, that is the rule. If it constitutes a current affairs programme, we look at it differently.
This is dancing on the head of a pin, because as a former news presenter myself, I know that news programmes often contain longer format interviews which could become current affairs programmes. I used to present BBC Breakfast. I would do long interviews every day, but it wasn't a current affairs programme. It was like Mr. Mogg's programme, a news programme. He is presenting a news programme, not a current affairs programme. He breaches your rules.
I don't have anything further to say. I've been clear on how we take our
Okay, well, I had a little look at what Kevin Backhurst, now I should explain, Kevin Backhurst is the group director in Ofcom. Maybe I could turn to you, Ms. Biggs. Here are the rules. You cannot, apparently, according to Mr. Backhurst, you cannot speak directly to the camera. If you do that, it's then a current affairs. It's then a news show, not a current affairs show. Let me show you a picture. There is Mr. Mogg speaking directly to the camera. He does this every day. Now, Kevin Backhurst, who's one of your most senior figures, lists in his blog a number of rules that will make a programme a news programme rather than a current affairs programme. The first one is speaking directly to the camera. I've just shown you Mr. Mogg speaking directly to the camera with a scrolling news bar underneath. Now, that's the grammar of a news programme. Would you accept that?
There's a couple of things there. Just a point of clarification. Kevin Backhurst has recently left Ofcom. He's been appointed as the DG for RTE in Ireland.
But you're not resigning from what he said?
No, so I'm just providing that as a clarification, just so members are aware. The second thing, a breach of our rules, whether that's a breach of due impartiality on a news programme or a current affairs programme, is incredibly serious, and we take that breach very seriously. As my colleague mentioned, we launched an investigation into that particular show. Well, a particular show. I don't know if it's exactly the one that you've just shown
me on the screen.
Night. So it would be inappropriate for us to potentially inhibit or affect an ongoing investigation. I hear what you're saying about the concerns around our definitions in both our code and guidance. They are things that we keep under review. We are cognizant of changing audience appetite. We're also cognizant of audiences' expectation to access a range of content, and that includes magazine-style programmes, that includes current affairs and news, and there's a number of news channels that contain current affairs or more magazine-type.
That's fine. If you want to change the rules, change the rules. If you want to say that Tory MPs or any other party's MPs can present programmes, change the rules. My point is that it's blindingly obvious to anybody watching that channel or listening to our proceedings today, it's blindingly obvious that they breach the rules, not just in a single individual programme that you're investigating, but every day. So I've shown you one breach of the rules, speaking directly to the camera. Here's what else Mr. Backhurst said. He said that shows with MPs presenting shouldn't have running orders or a series of stories at the top of the show. Now, I endured a couple of episodes of Mr. Mogg's programme just by way of research. He always has a running order and a series of stories at the top of the show. So that's another one of Ofcom's rules breached. They should not cut to live reporters. He also cuts to live reporters. Should not conduct news interviews. He also conducts news interviews. Every single one of Mr. Backhurst's Ofcom tests, Jacob Rees-Mogg breaches every single day of the week, and yet you're only investigating one programme.
We'd be very happy to update the committee when the investigation concludes.
Right. I mean, it looks to me as if you want to expand your powers, or you've been asked potentially to expand your powers, but you can't even cope with what you've got on at the moment, let alone expanding. Can I go back to you, Ms Davis. Now, your boss, Melanie Dawes, appeared before us previously. Now, she seemed quite confused when I asked her about Tory MPs interviewing the Tory Chancellor on a Tory budget. She hadn't seen the programme. I watched back her interview. It didn't go well for her. She didn't seem clear about whether or not it breached the Ofcom rules. Now, this was Esther and Phil show, Esther McVeigh and Philip Davies. You started investigating on the 3rd of April. It's now May, June, July. It's 12 weeks on. Why haven't you announced the results of your investigation?
So, as we've already said, I'm not going to comment on a live case, but we are progressing as quickly as we are able to. As Kate already mentioned, a breach of our code is a very serious thing. We have to balance freedom of expression, and we don't take a decision to breach a broadcaster on those grounds lightly. Freedom of expression for both the broadcaster and the audiences. We're taking the time we need to make the right decision.
Well, it's far too long, isn't it? 12 weeks. It's a very simple matter of principle. Whether or not MPs are allowed to breach your rules and get away with it, night after night. Now, there's no more egregious breach of your rules, which I've read out, than a Tory Chancellor being interviewed by Tory MPs, and that programme trailed on a news channel by the Treasury. We've just lost all sight of objective journalism. And it's your guys' job to enforce the rules, and you're not doing it. And we're going to proceed down a route till we end up with awful American-style ranting at the camera. We're already seeing it, all masquerading as news.
I think the one point to add before perhaps we go on to the sections around the media bill and our views on those would be we take our responsibility to protect the trusted, impartial and accuracy of television and radio news very seriously. I hear what you're saying, but that's exactly why we need to take these investigations thoroughly.
I know you hear what I'm saying.
Make decisions known publicly, because they do set a precedent for other editors on... It
certainly does. You say you're hearing what I'm saying. I've been saying this for months and months and months, and it seems to me that Ofcom is constantly following and trying to catch up. You're not setting the pace, which is your job.
I have to agree with John, if I'm totally honest. They do seem to be playing catch-up more than just setting the pace. But anyway, well, after John Nicolson had finished his line of questioning, a certain Colin Brown, chair of Voice of the Listener and Viewer, he wanted to put his own little take on this debate that John Nicolson had started.
Just before we leave the subject, in case we don't come back to it, could I just mention on the impartiality debate that the VLV recommends that the media bill should more clearly define exactly which output should be subject to due impartiality rules and not leave this task to Ofcom's discretion, because we think that's putting, if you like, an unfair burden on Ofcom in that context. And we also think that the provisions in the 2003 Act should be tightened and made more clear. And the current bill is an opportunity to address those issues.
Interesting take, eh? Now, it does seem clear to me that our haunted pencil at GB is breaking the rules, isn't it? And it's clearly obvious that the more entitled that he is, the more happier he will to just carry on doing it, won't it? But what do you guys think? Let me know down below. And if you enjoyed this fantastic bit of questioning by John Nicolson, give it a like. And if you're new to my channel, I cover stuff like this in House of Commons and right into these select committee meetings as well. All very interesting if you're into that sort of stuff. So subscribe. And I shall just leave the video here, and until the next time, I shall bid you farewell and take care, my friends.